James Comey's been fired. The Trump administration says that the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General made this decision. Now, it's interesting that they've put the Deputy Attorney General in that conversation. Why bother? The Attorney General could make that decision on their own because the FBI, of course, Comey's the head of the FBI, reports into the Attorney General at the Justice Department. The reason you might want the Deputy Attorney General involved is because the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, technically recused himself from anything to do with the Russian investigations. And James Comey has already publicly announced in Congress that he is investigating the Trump administration for connections to Russia. So that's why you need Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein to be involved as well. Now, it turns out they have now given their reason for firing James Comey in a panic. And they say, oh, no, of course it has nothing to do with the Russian investigations at all. We fired him because of how he mistreated Hillary Clinton.
Oh, please. Wow, they're not even trying.
Yes, that's amazing.
Keep in mind, Trump was the one who said during his campaign that he hopes that someone hacks into her email and publishes as much information as they have. Like he loved that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
He does not care about Hillary Clinton. That is the most ridiculous reason that I've ever heard in my entire life.
Maybe the worst excuse I've ever heard in politics. This beats John Danforth leaving the United Nations because he said his wife hurt her ankle. He couldn't stand the Bush administration. He's like, oh, my wife twisted her ankle, I gotta go. So this one is even worse. So they say, well, because of the improprieties and how he handled the private email server controversy with Hillary Clinton and doing the press conference and then making the announcements, of course, right before the election, that helped Donald Trump become president. Now apparently Donald Trump's so angry about it. Oh, come on. Okay, and remember, they knew all of that when they decided to keep James Comey on as the head of the FBI earlier. It's not like Donald Trump and his entire team was not aware of what James Comey had done with the private email server controversy regarding Hillary Clinton before. They were perfectly aware of it. And then you're gonna tell me with no replacement, all of a sudden in the middle of the day, in a panic, you fire James Comey, not because of the Russian investigation he has on you, but because you realize months and months later, oh golly gee, what he did to Hillary Clinton.
Oh, really broke his heart to see Hillary Clinton hurt like that. What did Comey expect though? Right? I mean, Trump now has a very obvious pattern of doing away with anyone who has the audacity to challenge him in any way, shape, or form. He is the type of guy who needs to have his ego stroked, who needs constant validation, who needs to feel good about himself. And so anyone who stands in his way or anyone who attacks his image, who happens to be employed by the federal government, has their days numbered. It's
That's
that
right.
easy.
So, but at the same time, firing James Comey is telling everyone in the world the Russian investigation is very real. There's a ton of evidence, and Comey was about to do something to reveal that evidence. So I had to fire him in a panic. And you don't put that message out unless James Comey had a lot of evidence and was about to do something. So we're doing a poll already on day one. TYTnetwork.com/Trump. Is Donald Trump done? And by the way, I vote yes. This is a historic firing. This is like the Saturday Night Massacre that Richard Nixon did when he fired everybody about Watergate. And that didn't help, that only wound up exacerbating the situation. And here's one of the things I've maintained all along. And people think I'm doing it for partisan reasons or something. No, I'm here to report the news to you. Donald Trump is one of the dumbest people we have ever seen in public life. He didn't know healthcare was going to be complicated. He didn't know North Korea was going to be complicated. In the middle of an international conflict with North Korea, he had no idea who the leader of North Korea was. He is monstrously stupid. You think a guy that stupid can cover up a crime where he had a financial deal with the Russians? He can't cover that up. Anyone who investigates it will find it. And apparently Comey found it. Now, when you fire him, you think that makes it go away? How many other people at the FBI know about it? So what are you gonna do? You're gonna fire them all? You're gonna fire them one by one and nobody's gonna leak and nobody's gonna tell you anything? I guarantee you that they replaced James Comey with an unbelievable hack Okay, someone, I mean, he might replace him with Donald Trump Jr. because he's in a world of hurt. So he needs someone he can absolutely trust to be a crook, maybe Chris Christie. But either way, whoever he hires is gonna be an absolute lackey, but it ain't gonna help. When you fire a guy who says in public, in Congress, I'm investigating you for your links to Russia, and then you pretend you did it to help your former political opponent who you let chance of lock her up to? Your audience was chanting lock her up, and now you think you're protecting her honor? That's your excuse for firing James Comey? No, again, not that bright, didn't bother to come up with an excuse that was even tenable. In fact, they must have done it in such a hurry that they're like, look, we don't have 5 minutes to come up with a decent excuse. Write the letter, write the letter. The guy's got the handcuffs in his hand. He's coming down the hall, fire him right now. So that's the kind of situation we're in right now. That is amazing news.
Corporate media is awesome.
Wrong.
Independent media is the way to go.
Believe me, believe me.
Support independent media right now. Become a Young Turks member. TYTnetwork.com/join.